Every woman deserves to feel vibrant, safe, loved, and feel her power. The Woman's Vibrancy Code podcast is here for a potent use of your time. We will cover energy, hormones, and libido with episodes that also dive into entrepreneurship, money mindset, feminine power, and much, much more. Introducing Maraya Brown, Yale and functional medicine trained women's health expert, midwife, mom, and entrepreneur.
Hey everybody, Maraya Brown here, women's health provider online. I help women feel turned on by their life, their lover, and themselves. And I've been doing it for 20 plus years. I have today Jamie Flanagan with me. And this is fun because she and I have the same coach as we are building as CEOs and entrepreneurs. And this is very different. So she works in the real estate world with her husband, Brad. And we were having a conversation on the side and it was like, this is really relevant information to bring to the women in my space. So if you are an entrepreneurial woman, if you are a woman who's curious about real estate, if you're a mom that's thinking about, maybe I'm ready to go back to work and what would it look like to dabble in real estate and what are the different things that are going on? Or if you're someone who's already very successful, you have a diverse portfolio. They have, what is it? You've brought in $14 million in real estate in 5 years.
Yeah. So we own and manage $14 million in real estate on top of our regular businesses.
Spectacular. And hopefully you're doing it without too much stress and burnout.
One of the topics that we coach around is the fact that most people think that you need to be on a hamster wheel in real estate. And I started out that way and have learned a much better way and have a lot better work-life balance now than I've ever had. I remote school my kids and people think I'm absolutely crazy, but it really actually has brought more balance to our life and has allowed us more flexibility and freedom than what most people interpret it. And in my bio, I noticed it's really like we don't live to the societal standards, like what people think. Things have changed so much, and especially like after COVID did amazing things for the real estate industry, in my opinion. But yeah, so we really do life a little differently than the burnt out realtor that most people think about. I don't know, if you're in real estate, you get it, but that's not me.
I can't wait to hear more. I have not yet diversified with real estate, although I'm very curious and I'm excited to learn how. So can you just first tell us a little bit about your story and what does your life look like now? I'm guessing for the women that are listening and the husbands that are listening, as they're just kind of wondering, what can that look like? What kind of life can we create? Paint the picture for us.
Yeah. So my husband and I met in Vegas with I had nothing. I rented a very small apartment in Omaha, Nebraska. Talk about cyclical, because fast forward 13 years and I'll go into that. But I had an apartment. I went on a mini vacation. I'd been on a plane like once in my whole life. My friend took me to Vegas. Well, I got there and I was like, I'm not going home. The weather's amazing. I was overwhelmed by, just Vegas in itself is when you're, 22 years old, and I'd never been anywhere. It was very cool. I ended up meeting my now husband. We got pregnant with my daughter, moved to Nebraska to my 1-bedroom apartment that I had here in Nebraska because I had it. And then I decided not to come home from Vegas. But fast forward, and we've gone through it all. Like, we struggled through buying our first house. We've had crappy landlords, like every aspect of like financial we've been through. At one point in our time, I short sold my very first house. So before I knew my husband, I was 18 and I was the crash. I bought a house at 18 and I was an esthetician at a salon. No 18-year-old salon girl makes $6,000 a month. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry that I contributed to the crash. I didn't know any better. But in all reality, like, I didn't know what I was reading. I didn't know the contract paperwork. So I did short sale my house. Actually, when I met Brad, I was going through that process, which was part of my mental. Vegas was like my getaway escape from everything I had just gone through. And so we met, it was fun. It was awesome. We got pregnant, and then reality, sets in, and we started living like real life. We got married and we ended up getting divorced very short into our marriage. And we didn't know what we didn't know. I don't know how to explain this, but like, you're constantly being told certain things, and like, marriage is great, but you don't really know how to marriage. Like, how do you marry, be a married couple, and
Right.
and how do you make new friends as a married couple? Because me and Brad each had our own friends, and like all of the things. But we ended up splitting up, and then we ended up becoming better friends as not being married, and ended up a couple of years later to actually like date each other. we ended up getting pregnant again. So 2 kids out of wedlock. And then we got remarried. And so now here we are. My daughter's 12 and my son is 7. And we have learned to be not okay. It's still hard, but we have harder conversations, and we've learned to actually have those conversations. And then in the process, I bought a home when we were divorced, and that became our first rental together. So when we got back together, I had bought this house for me and my daughter to live in, and then he moved back in, we got pregnant, had my son, and now we were in a 2-bedroom house. So we had a decision to make, like, were we going to turn it into a rental, or were we going to sell it and buy the next house? So he ended up purchasing the next house in his name and his income, which is where this kind of aha. So when we have conversations with people who are married about how they structure this, we have a lot of conversations around whose name is the debt going to be in, how to title it so that you guys are both protected, and really having those conversations, because depending on what state you're in is also going to depend how the property, if for some reason something were to happen. But like, those are kind of the hard conversations that we have with our clients, because they're in the back of your mind. A lot of people, they're in the back of the mind of. So now we've been through, we've felt those feelings. So we can actually relate to people going through it of like, hey, we want to buy this property, but we're not married yet. And this might be for your first home. This might be for your first investment property. But so that's where we came from. We turned our primary residence into a rental. And then my grandpa ended up passing away, and Brad had an old, can't remember what truck it was, but a truck that was paid off coincidentally. That's what we leveraged for the down payment. And we bought my grandpa's house out of the estate and turned that into a rental. Then my family, it was like a joke, like, just call Jamie, she'll buy your house. So then my mom, I can't remember if I bought my mom or my brother's house next, but my brother was moving to Minnesota, and he called a different realtor than his sister. So that was in itself. So I was so mad. I hope my brother will never hear this probably, but it was so funny because I was like, well, what did the realtor tell you? And my brother's like, well, he said I could get $77,000 for my house. And I was like, well, you could get over that, but I'll buy it for that. We bought my brother's house.
That's awesome.
That was bitter sister. And now I joke about it with him. I'm like, if you hire a good realtor, you could have made more, because I would have listed it. We would have got bidding more, all the things. But then my mom in Nebraska, the prices back then, you can't get a house for $77,000 now. This was like 5 years ago. But then my mom, same thing. So, and we ended up with this portfolio of properties. And at that point, we got to 5 properties. We now have about 80 doors. But when we got to 5 properties, we hit like, why did we do this? We did have tenants calling us on a regular basis, and we were the only ones. Like, we were responding to the calls. So my husband is really good at spreadsheets, and we would look at our equity position and how much we were growing our wealth every year. And the moment that we looked at that spreadsheet, I was like, okay, I don't want to sell anymore. Like, we'd get the calls once in a while, like nothing. We never had calls in the middle of the night like people talk about. No toilets like exploded, and nothing like that has ever happened. It was more like, hey, my shower curtain fell down. Like, weird things are like, I don't really think that's my responsibility, but is it? And just having to have those conversations on a regular basis was really what we were dealing with. And then anyways,
I want to make sure, did I hear you say don't sell anymore? Meaning once you've bought, you stay on that piece of property for the long haul.
Yes.
Because this is important.
There are exceptions to the rule, but like Warren Buffett, he talks about it, like, you don't sell your real estate. Yeah. And
and what I want to say is this long haul game, that's where you and our work is similar.
Yes.
Because I have people coming to me saying, I tried to supplement, it didn't work. I was put on this prescription, but now I have these other side effects. And it's like, wait a minute. What if instead we look at our decisions now for the long haul? Is this the best decision for the next year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Can we make a change and stick with it for a chunk of time? And I'm guessing in real estate, my understanding at this point, I was just talking with a mentor who said, even buying in 2008 or before that, as hard as that was, for people who held on, they're still in a good place right now.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And like,
patience. Stick with a plan. Pick a plan and stick with it.
Yes. And think about the opportunities that were created in 2008 when the crash happened. If you had money, like if you invested in real estate, it's the stock market. When the stock market's down, you don't sell, you buy more. And I have to say, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not an attorney, all that stuff, right? Consult your tax person, consult your financial advisor. But these are just, themes that we know or like get talked about a lot.
And so what is the work that you do now? How do you help people and what do you do?
Yes. So we built our portfolio up to a point of, we've got about $100,000 in rental income every month. And so now we get asked a lot of questions. So now we actually coach people on how to, first of all, get into real estate, what types of real estate there are, as well as how to invest and do it moderately for the long haul. So where do you start to get where we are? And that's really what we walk people through.
So the people that come into my space, they're feeling exhausted, they're working hard, they're burning the candle at both ends. And then all of a sudden they have more energy, they're making more money, they have more confidence. And let's say someone is listening and they're at the beginning. Maybe they're in this place of self-discovery where they're realizing, you know what, this career path that I thought was it for me isn't it. And maybe I want to dabble in real estate as work, but also as an income source.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's a stay-at-home mom who's just thinking about trying work outside of the home. What would you say to those women that are listening?
Get in a real estate class, like start taking real estate classes. But even before that, have a conversation with me, because as you're taking your real estate classes, there are some things that you can actually do prior to getting your license that are going to set you up for success after. And when you're navigating this, especially like with kids and everything, it is kind of structuring your calendar around your life and then working your ideal client into how your schedule is going to look. And so understanding who you're going to help after you have a real estate license is super beneficial, just to understand what the different pathways are and what's going to require more of your time. So for example, if you're going to be out showing houses all the time, that's very demanding on a female with young kids, because you're leaving their nap time, it's dinner time, and it becomes chaos. And that's where the burnout begins. But if you can, from the listing side or investment side, work with an investor who you can go and take notes of the property, send pictures, and do it on your time, you've now created a stream of income and you didn't actually have to meet a client. Like I work with several investors who I've created this trust between us, because I can go to the house and say X, Y, and Z is wrong. It needs this, this, and this in work. And until you get there, it's okay to you can take the pictures and send them to the investor and have them understand the information, but they don't want to meet and leave their workday either. Like we create this, like I have to meet people in person, I have to do this, and that we're just creating that. So I've done listing appointments via Zoom, via FaceTime. I've done all kinds of crazy things as far as real estate sales goes. And I've been told so many times, oh, that won't work. And guess what? It works. We sell 100 homes a year, and I go on about.
But what about someone like me? So I don't want to become a realtor. I love what I do. And imagine there's many women and families that are listening where they are really happy with their work. They're like, I don't want to become a realtor. I just want to diversify my portfolio. And with inflation and the way the market is going, I'm not sure that where I have my money right now is the best place. And so let's say it's someone who's thinking about buying an investment property. So their first, second home. Yes. Where does that person start?
That would be a very deep dive into your goals. And so then you have a conversation of, are you looking for cash flow? Are you looking for a tax benefit? Are you looking for appreciation? Because I have a good income, and generally people who have good incomes don't need the cash flow. And oftentimes when you analyze a property, appreciation outpaces cash flow. So if you look at a property, and let's just say, I'm just going to use really easy numbers, but you find a property and the mortgage payment's going to be $1,500. And you can rent that out for $2,000. So you have $500 in cash flow. And obviously, depending on your market and where you're at, the percentages, I always look at the percentage, like as a whole, I'm getting this back on the cash that I invested. So that's the first thing is, do I want cash flow or appreciation? Well, when we first started investing, appreciation was super important to us. So like, for example, my grandpa's house that I brought up, we bought for $90,000. My whole family, we knew it was worth like $130 to $140. Well, we only held that for 3 years. We ended up selling it. This was an exception to the rule. This was one of those, this property was creating us way more headaches. We just moved the money somewhere else, and that there's tax strategies there too. But the cash flow was really good because it was in a neighborhood that was sought after. So the rents were higher, but we bought it for $90,000. So we had great cash flow, but like the maintenance on the property ended up completely eating into it. And so those are things to evaluate. Now, vacation homes, for example, what I like to stress is that, where do you enjoy being? Where do you want to go to more? Like for us, we're in Nebraska. Colorado is Brad's happy spot, my husband. It's mine too, but I love heat. So Arizona. Well, we can very easily fly from Omaha to Denver, go up to our mountain house in Winter Park, and then we can easily go to Denver and fly down to Arizona, or we can go back to Omaha. So we've created this like circle. It's an hour flight basically from here to Denver and an hour, I think, and a half flight to Phoenix. So it's not anything that we can't handle with the kids. Like it's very functional for our family. And so when we look at vacation properties, like I would encourage looking at like, what is the travel and the cost to get there? And what are you spending now in that area? Because now you're looking at your cost as far as, well, like Colorado for us, we were renting a place for a couple of days and spending $5,000. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, if we do this for the next 20 years, I just did the math in my head and I already forgot it, but now I'm all of a sudden, whatever it is, $100,000 in. Right. And we could own and have appreciation on a property if we're willing to put that down now and basically front it, you know? Mm-hmm. And so we bought an $800,000 house in Colorado. Obviously the market's been going crazy. So it's worth, we had it, you know, ran a market analysis on it recently. And he told us between 1.4 and 1.6. Like, okay, that was a win, right? That's not normal. And this market isn't normal. But you have to think of those things. Like we bought a home in Scottsdale, a condo, and unfortunately that actually doesn't do very well. Like everyone wants a condo in Scottsdale. Well, what do you think that does? Creates lots of competition. So now, but if you're living there part-time and you're renting it out and it's right where you want to be, well, what makes sense, you know?
Okay. I have another question because it's specific to the market right now. And I'm sure there's many people listening. And first, I just have to say, like, this is a very different interview for my podcast and even within my community, because generally I'm around health, mind, body, spirit. But here's the deal. As women grow in their confidence, they have more energy. Now, all of a sudden they're negotiating better jobs. They're getting paid more and they're starting to really think about, how do I spend my time differently? And now I'm making more money. So what do I do with this money? So I just have to say that, like, this is relevant to all of you that are listening, and particularly the women that come into my space. These are the questions that are asking. So I'm like, Jamie, I've got to bring you. Okay. So the next thing is, I imagine lots of people are wondering right now, the market feels like it's a little cray cray. Prices have gone up and there's a lot of people kind of feeling cautious that we're at the top of a bubble and this isn't the right time to buy. And in many markets, things are selling so fast, cash offers within 48 hours, multiple buyers. What advice do you give to people right now if it's in a really competitive market and or they're worried about, you know, what if I buy at the top and we're back into 2008, 2009, where all of a sudden it's going to crash and I'm going to lose all my money?
Yep. So two things. Brad and I always looked at the property makes sense multiple ways. So we like to make sure the property would be a good short-term rental, a good long-term rental, or a good flip. Because the reality of it is, when you look at like rents don't really go down. In fact, if the market were to crash, where do the people who lose their house go? They have to go to the rental market, right? Now, credit and stuff is going to be messed up, but like economically, we don't feel that this is the case. Like economic indicators that we watch have shown that this, you know, appreciation, it's going to slow down. You're not going to get 30% returns, you know, but the appreciation and the way that the crash that happened before was because we were giving people loans that shouldn't have loans. Like now, you know, you have to have a higher credit score. You have to supply income documentation. The stated income loans, you actually have to prove your stated income with actual statements. So this market is totally not 2008, 2009. Mm-hmm. The other thing, when you ask like finding a deal, there are always opportunities. There are always deals in any market. In fact, Brad and I have bought more houses this year than we have any other year. And there's opportunities in investors who are also seeing the market doing something and they want to move their money into bigger investments. So for example, one of the opportunities that we just took advantage of was an investor that we work with had 21 homes to sell. My sales team, we said, hey, you should split them up, individually market them because you'll get bidding wars on each one. He's like, nope, I don't want my tenants to know. I am not doing that. So the only way that we're going to sell these properties, which he's like, they need to be gone. I'm selling them because I have X to put the money in over here. Well, then me and Brad saw an opportunity. Okay, well, what if we bought the 21 houses and we put them all on the market individually? We're willing to do it. We don't have personal relationships with these tenants. And we weren't like trying to kick anyone out of their house or anything. Like we are very strategically doing this as far as like, you know, we're having conversations with the tenants if they want to stay or try and buy the house from us. Like, so, ultimately it's a business decision. So there are opportunities. There's also like poorly marketed homes, even in a good market. So when I'm looking for houses, I look for houses that have really bad pictures. I'm looking for houses that say they're under construction, but they're actually complete. That's how we found our Colorado house. It was listed, but the pictures were still showing like dirt driveway, still under construction. But then I noticed like down in the notes, it said like completion date of whatever. And I'm like, this should be done. My realtor went over there and looked, and sure enough, it was done. Just marketing wasn't there. So most of the deals that Brad and I find that are on the MLS are just poorly marketed. And no, everyone is thinking the same thing you are. Well, if it's so great, why hasn't it sold yet? Well, because nobody can visualize. So if you can look past the pictures and go even just drive by the property and see if it's like what you could do to spruce it up, you just made an opportunity even in a down market or in a high market.
I love it. Okay, I have another question for you, and I'm aware of time, and I'm sure there's some things that you want to talk about without me just throwing questions.
No, you're good. This is great.
Okay, so if there's a lot of ambitious women that come into my space, there's many entrepreneurs, and I know you're not a CPA, I know you're not an accountant, and hopefully hopefully you know where I'm going.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting smart at decreasing our tax burden. So we're getting smart at showing less income on the books.
Yep.
So that we're paying less taxes. But then we deal with the challenge of now we go out and try to do a refi, or we try to apply for a loan, but we don't have income to show for. So when the clients come in and work with you, do you give them any strategy or advice on how to strategize their add-ons, or what to do to figure out how do we as entrepreneurs be smart with our money and be able to pay our employees well and build our business to create more commerce in the marketplace, while also explaining to the bank the real story, not just what's being shown to the IRS?
Yes, I actually just wrote a note about that because I'm going to totally add a whole module on just breaking it down to what you just said very simply. The thing is, so your income's going up, like there's a strategy. Okay, you can take I'm going to pay more taxes, skip some write-offs to make your income is higher, and you get to buy or your primary residence. And this is why primary residence, especially because we work with a lot of self-employed buyers. My husband does loans that's like his specialty is self-employed borrowers. But you want to make sure, first of all, that your lender understands tax returns, because a lot of lenders do not understand tax returns. So working with somebody like a lender who actually has investment properties will actually understand what they can add back into your income, that other lenders will literally say, nope, I can't do that loan because you wrote off whatever. But in all reality, like depreciation, you didn't actually recognize that off your income. So that's an add back, right? So that's one thing. The first thing is to have a good lender, but then also understanding. So if like investments, you get to offset your income because of a rental property, you get to depreciate. So when you have self-employment income, you need to have real estate. Like the car doesn't gain, and buying the heavy car and doing that whole strategy is great. It's just not for me. I'd rather buy a couple houses. So that's, again, to each their own. The Porsche doesn't pay my bills. Well, a Porsche isn't heavy enough, but whatever big fancy, I don't have one. See, I don't even know what it would be. Land Rover. Like the Land Rover doesn't actually pay my bills. Mm-hmm. Rental properties pay my bills, and they benefit me on my taxes. Yeah. So there's immense strategy there. And then what happens is you get into the, residential world versus commercial lending world. And so if rental properties become your business, people don't look at your income anymore. They're looking at your track record as a landlord. So when you're first investing, you're probably going to go to your regular loan officer, your regular mortgage lender, and get like an investment on a 30-year mortgage. Totally awesome, because you get a 30-year mortgage on it. But then as you grow and diversify, you're going to have the option of like commercial financing. There's hard money. Brad and I have never used hard money, but you find a really good deal and you need money really fast, and you know that I'm going to make X off of it. You might pay the 10% to get the house because it makes sense over here. That's a whole different, but really we're in it for the long run. So we don't do the hard money flip stuff. That's just not our strategy. But primary residence is why I think we usually focus on with new investors is like, you're ready to upgrade. Your income has gone up. You're ready for a nicer house. You're ready for the luxuries of a home that you might not have had when you first purchased. Now you get to actually, your first home, you just get what you get because it's all what you can afford. Or even your second home, you're buying based on like lifestyle. I need my kids' rooms close to my room, and like you're buying for whatever your lifestyle is at that time. But then you get to grow and you're like, okay, now I want my sanctuary in my house and I get to buy that. And so now you can take your previous home, and if it makes sense as a rental investment, you don't have to qualify. You have to qualify for the new house, and you can actually use income on that house. If you have a lease, there are actually loan programs that allow you to use that rental income to qualify for your next house. And then you start getting a track record as a landlord. So then, the commercial side of things, they will look at you as a business versus your personal income.
Awesome. I need to listen to that again and take notes. It's so fun because you interviewed me on your podcast, and I imagine there was moments where you were like, okay, wait, I need to listen to that again.
Yes.
I just reached my moment where I was like, okay, I'm going to have to listen to that again. So I'm wondering, Jamie, if you could just share, where do people find you? Any last parting words that feel important that we haven't talked about? And for anyone listening in that wants to create more energy, balance your hormones, bring your libido on, and as part of that, up-level your home, up-level and diversify your finances, find resources to where to start, or you're thinking about career shifts and you're like, maybe I want to become a realtor. It sounds to me like Jamie's a great start. Can you just tell the listeners, how do they reach out to you? Who reaches out to you? Who do you work with? And any last parting words?
Yes, I work with anybody, any ambitious person who wants to get into real estate in any way, shape, or form, and truly build wealth and recognize the tax benefits that come along with it. So I am very Facebook. That's where I live my life. So I'm on Facebook as Jamie Flanagan, and we have a group called Building Legacy Wealth. So Building Legacy Wealth Facebook group. Feel free to join that group. I go live on that, and we talk about like what is depreciation, and we just break it down to literally what is depreciation. How do you find your first rental property? So those are conversations that we have on a weekly basis in the group.
Awesome. Any last parting words?
This is awesome. I think our brains are both like, we opened each other up to new worlds.
Absolutely. For those that are listening to the podcast, thank you so much. The Women's Vibrancy Code. Look forward to seeing you on the other side. Look in the show notes. You'll be able to get the details and the links and all of her stuff if you want to reach out to Jamie. And I'm guessing Brad is also available for those that are wanting to reach out too.
Yes, he's a little harder to get a hold of.
Okay. So sounds like start with Jamie. All right. Cheers to your journey of health and wealth and impact. And I just want you all to feel turned on by your life, your lover, and yourself. And yes. Jamie, thank you so much for your time. Cheers to you, girl. Going from an apartment to $14 million portfolio. I give you a big high five.
Thank you.
All right. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you for listening to the Women's Vibrancy Code. Connect with us and take the first step to transforming your energy, hormones, and libido at thewomensvibrancycode.com. Cheers to your zest and vitality. Make sure to follow for weekly power-packed value.